Good afternoon, Virgo. Uh, there is a particular kind of stillness that arrives just before something changes. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of a held breath. The kind that settles over a room when no one is speaking, yet something enormous is being decided. You may have felt it recently. A pause in the ordinary, a small crack in the usual rhythm of your days, where the light comes through just slightly differently than it did before. Something seems to be gathering quietly and without announcement, not from outside you, not in the form of a message you haven't received yet or a door that hasn't opened, but closer than that. Something internal, like a shift in the gravity of your own attention, as though a part of you already knows that the ground beneath a certain situation is not as fixed as it appeared. There are moments in a life that don't announce themselves. They don't arrive with fanfare or warning. They come sideways in an ordinary afternoon, in a message you almost didn't notice, in a sentence that someone begins and then hesitates before finishing. And in that hesitation, everything changes. You may find yourself standing near one of those moments now. Let's speak about confession, not in the religious sense, not in the dramatic sense, but in its oldest, most human form. The act of saying what has been carried in silence. There is someone, and you may already feel the shape of who this is, even if the name hasn't fully surfaced yet, someone who has been holding something, not with cruelty, not with indifference, but with the particular heaviness of a person who does not yet know how to set a thing down without breaking it. Some people carry feelings the way you carry water in cupped hands, carefully, slowly, terrified of spilling. And the longer they walk like that, hunched and focused and quiet, the more isolated the carrying becomes. Until one day, the weight of protecting the feeling becomes greater than the fear of expressing it. That tipping point, that moment when the cup finally opens, it can look like courage from the outside, but from the inside, it often feels more like exhaustion, like the body finally overruling the mind, like the heart saying, enough. Something like this may be approaching you, not as a storm, but as a tide coming in, slow, inevitable in its own quiet way, reshaping the shoreline without anyone giving it permission. Think for a moment about what it means to be surprised by someone. Not shocked, not unsettled, but surprised in the way that a familiar landscape can surprise you on the morning after rain, when the light catches things you've walked past 100 times and suddenly they look entirely new. Um, this is the nature of what may be unfolding around you now. Someone you already know, someone whose presence in your life has perhaps felt like background, like furniture you stop seeing because it has always been. There may be preparing to step forward, to stop being background, to say something that repositions them entirely in your understanding of your own story, is less than hash zero. 5 hash is greater than. It's possible that you've had a feeling about this person that you haven't let yourself fully examine, a small uncomfortable knowing, the kind you explain away because it doesn't fit neatly into the structure you've built, because accepting it would require you to revise something, to look again at something you thought was already resolved. The mind is extraordinarily skilled at protecting itself from what it isn't ready for. But the body keeps a different kind of record. And if you've ever found your attention returning to someone without fully understanding why, if a name has surfaced in the quiet moments, in the in between spaces of your day that is worth sitting with, not as certainty, but as an invitation to notice. There is an architecture to confession that most people never see from the outside. The visible moment the words finally spoken is only the surface. Beneath it, there has been construction, quiet, private, often painful construction. The person who comes to you with something they've been holding has already lived through the telling 100 times in their own mind, has already imagined your face, has already rehearsed the silence that might follow, has already decided and undecided and decided again. What reaches you when it arrives is the final draft of something that has been rewritten in the dark for a long time. This matters because it means what you receive will not be careless. It will not be impulsive in the way that careless words are impulsive. Whatever is coming your way carries the weight of deliberation behind it. Even if it lands softly, even if it comes in a form that seems simple on the surface, the simplest confessions are often the ones with the deepest foundations. Now, let's move inward for a moment. Because the miracle here, if we can use that word loosely, as a metaphor for something unexpected that opens something previously closed, the miracle is not only about what someone else may say to you, it is also about what you may finally allow yourself to hear. There is a particular way we close ourselves to possibility without realizing we've done it. It happens gradually through accumulated experience, through the times we reached towards something and found nothing there, through the lessons that taught us manage your expectations, protect yourself, don't lean too far in any direction. And those lessons are not wrong. They come from real places, they served real purposes. But sometimes, and this may be one of those times, the very walls that protected you begin to work against you. Not because they are bad walls, but because what is approaching now is not what the walls were built to stop. You may notice in the coming days a small resistance within yourself, a hesitation, an impulse to minimize what you're feeling or to explain away what you're receiving before you've really let it reach you. Um, this is worth noticing, not to override it, but to understand what it is protecting and whether that protection still serves you. Sometimes the most radical act is simply to remain open, to hold the possibility without collapsing it into either certainty or dismissal, to say, I don't know what this is yet, and I'm willing to find out. Let's speak about the word miracle not as magic, not as divine intervention, but as what it quietly refers to in its most human dimension. Something that was not supposed to happen, something that exceeded the limits of what was considered possible within a given context, something that arrived in spite of the architecture of probability. Because the truth is, people surprise us consistently, perpetually. The person who seemed certain to stay silent speaks. The one who appeared to have moved on reveals that they never quite left. The one who showed you indifference shows you, eventually, that the indifference was itself a kind of armor. Humans are extraordinarily bad at carrying secrets that live in the body. We leak them through the way we linger at the end of conversations that should have ended, through the way our voices change on certain subjects, through the way we return to certain places, certain people, certain conversations, as though drawn by something we haven't yet named. And occasionally, the weight of the unnamed thing becomes too much to continue carrying unnamed. That is the threshold now. Someone may be standing at that threshold. What would it mean for you if this were true? Not in the grand, sweeping narrative sense, but in the small, quiet, intimate sense. What would it mean to have something confirmed that you suspected but never let yourself fully believe? What would it feel like to have a silence finally spoken into? Ah, this is not a small thing, even when it arrives gently. Because the world we inhabit when we know something is different from the world we inhabit when we only suspect it. Knowing changes the landscape, it repositions things. It requires you to make new decisions about what you want and how much of yourself you're willing to offer into a new and uncertain space. So, as you move through whatever is unfolding, and something does seem to be unfolding, carry with you the knowledge that you are not required to respond immediately. You are not required to match the energy of what you receive before you've had time to understand it. You are not required to be ready before you are ready. The miracle, if it comes, will wait for you to meet it in your own time. There is a final thing worth sitting with, and it is this: you have been here before. Not in the exact form, not with this exact person or this exact set of circumstances, but you have stood at the edge of something unexpected and survived the standing. You have absorbed a surprise and found your way through the recalibration it required. You have been the one to whom something was finally said, and you have found the words to answer, or the grace to sit in silence until the words arrived. You are more prepared than you think you are. Not because you have rehearsed this, but because you have lived enough to know that the moments that seem the most destabilizing are often the ones that lead to the most honest ground, the places where pretense falls away, where the careful performances we've been giving each other can finally rest. What is forming around you now, in whatever shape it takes, whenever it arrives, seems less like an ending of something and more like a clearing, like fog that has been sitting over a particular landscape finally beginning to lift slowly from the edges inward. You don't have to chase what's coming. You don't have to accelerate it or interpret it before it has fully formed, or decide what it means before you have all the information. You only have to stay present, open, willing to be surprised without immediately bracing against the surprise. The confession that is forming in someone's chest, the words being gathered and regathered in the quiet of their own private hours, will find its way to you in the time that it takes. And when it does, you will know how to receive it. Not perfectly, not without vulnerability, but honestly, and honestly is enough. That is where you are right now. Not at an ending, not even quite at a beginning, but at one of those narrow, luminous points between the two where something real can finally be said and where something real can finally be heard. Stay with that. It belongs to you.